Most people are interested to know what happens when we die.
Even in contemporary culture now, we still find a fascination with death. What's next? Everybody wants to know, where do I go when I die? So it's an age-old theme.
What are the consequences to the choices we make in life? That is what Dante's Inferno explores, dealing with the consequences to the choices we make in life.
Dante Alighieri is one of the most prominent medieval poets. He's really in a small group of very influential writers who've had these works that have kind of lasted throughout time. But there's something magical about Dante's Inferno and the Divine Comedy in general, where the language is so vibrant and his descriptions are so intense that it's, I think, one of the major reasons why it's lived on.
The thing he does best, perhaps, is create in a very few words memorable and striking visual images. He coins with astonishing skill these unforgettable pictures in words.
Really the central figure of the Divine Comedy and one of the central figures in Dante's personal and spiritual life is Beatrice Portinari. We don't know a ton about her. We do know that the two of them met at a party when they were both 9 years old.
And Dante admired her from afar. He claimed he fell in love with her at first sight when they were 9 years old. And he is said to have written after he saw her again that she smiled at him. And he was thrilled about that, but that also indicates that they probably didn't have a really close relationship. She may not even have known he was interested in her.
Dante and Beatrice are never lovers. They're never really together. They both married separately. She died quite young, in her early 20s, and this is devastating to Dante because he had held her up as his feminine ideal, as a spiritual ideal. And when she died, we're told that he just went into an insane depression.
It was kind of one of those things that, it never happened for them. And he obviously regretted that his whole life, because when he got sent to exile and he chose to write what ended up being his defining work, it's all inspired by her. That poem would not exist if it weren't for Beatrice.
And one of the big things that I think made the Divine Comedy so significant for its time is that it was written in the common vernacular of Italian.
And in those days, there wasn't a lot of reading and writing in general, and a lot of texts, particularly religious texts, were in the ancient languages, but Dante chooses to write in the language of the Italians, and because of that, he's read aloud even in his own lifetime, and as his work is handed down, the sort of larger population is able to enjoy it.
But as well as increasing the size of Dante's potential audience, the choice of the vernacular also conditions the nature of the poem that he writes. It makes possible the force and the vigor and the concision and the liveliness of his images and the colloquial nature of the exchanges among characters. It adds immeasurably to the drama and to the excitement of the poem as we have it today.
It would almost be kind of like going to the movies for us today. It's kind of like a very kind of mainstream consciousness about what the afterlife is like. That really hadn't been done in that way prior to that. Most of the descriptions of what the afterlife might be like were really received on very sort of disciplined religious terms, if you will.
After the invention of the printing press in 1440, we see the first appearance of the Divine Comedy in print, as opposed to in manuscript form.
People could pick it up and read it, and it was a ton of people read it, and actually people thought that it was almost an extension of the Bible. They thought that it was true.
Very cleverly, he casts himself in the poem. He's the main character. It's a first-person piece of literature, which is very unique for the time. Him putting himself there and speaking to people that he knows and political figures that he knows a lot about, or mythological figures that he spent a lot of time researching and knew a lot about. It makes it all come to life in an amazing way that doesn't feel like a flight of fantasy. It feels like he actually went there. That's, I think, probably that's kind of the war of the worlds of the time or whatever. He kind of fooling people, think, did he really go there? Did he have this experience?
There isn't really a description of hell in the way that our contemporary culture imagines hell to be. It was really Dante Alighieri, in a way, in the way he had written about hell and described it, somehow has become kind of a permanent mainstay in the way we imagine hell to be.
And in the Divine Comedy, what Dante is trying to do is fuse the art of his poetry with the substance of his ideas about human life and about the life to come. So he's trying to create a verbal artifact which will have such an impression on its reader that not only will the reader step back and say, gosh, that's beautiful, but he or she will also say, wow, that makes you think.
He's obviously influenced a huge number of artists that followed in behind him, from music and painting and sculptures.
The history of illustration of the Divine Comedy, of course, goes back to the very beginning, to the manuscripts of the 14th century. And there's a long tradition since then of interpretation and response to the text of the poem. The interesting thing is that this wonderful array of visual response to Dante all comes from the same source. All these artists, after all, are working with the same text.
So around the time that Delacroix is really kind of pushing that romantic era on the continent across the channel, in England, a guy named William Blake really becomes almost the central figure for reinventing Dante. He's very forward-thinking in terms of kind of bringing his madness to his work. He spends, like many other artists, his life working on Dante, and he literally was painting one of the watercolors from Dante on the day that he died. So he worked on it all the way up to his death, much like Rodin.
And the idea that, the Rodin's the Thinker, one of the world's most famous statues, that is Dante Alighieri, contemplating the gates of hell, I think is a fascinating statement of something that everybody knows that statue. You look at it, around the world, everyone knows who the Thinker is. And to have that be, a portrait of Dante Alighieri, I think really says something, speaks to the importance of his work and how that's carried through, to modern times.
It's cold. I thought hell was supposed to be hot.
Hell is a complicated and nuanced place that transcends cliches, Dante.
Oh, you don't say. I was totally expecting to see demons and tortures and bondage stuff and, I don't know, like rubber and chicks in stiletto heels.
This is hell, Dante, not your personal fantasy.
I think everybody, when the idea of the illustration of the Divine Comedy comes to mind, everybody perhaps still thinks first of all of Gustave Doré.
Doré is a 19th century French illustrator. He had an amazing affection for the Divine Comedy drawings. And I think what's unusual about them is that they're very technical in nature. They're incredibly violent. They're probably some of the first drawings that really capture the violence of Inferno. And he's very, very specific and methodical about following exactly what Dante wrote. And in that sense, his adaptation, if you will, is the tightest of almost any artist that's taken on the project. One of the things that's really interesting about Dante is that obviously it's an amazing artistic and intellectual achievement, but it's also always been commercially viable. And in the 20th century, we've even seen Disney and, of course, Electronic Arts now sort of using Dante as a platform to create entertainment experiences that are going to sell. He's always been both, kind of that artist favorite, but also something that's commercially viable. He is remembered, and he is continually brought up again and again in culture and high culture and pop culture. The game project has made a lot of people interested in Dante again, and that with each kind of new adaptation or new tweak on the Divine Comedy, there's a kind of resurgence in people finding out about him and about his life and about the poem.
Hello everyone, this is from Veda 17. It's been late. I was trying to record one before this, but it just stuff happened. So anyway, this was from the. I finally, I think I found a video game, Dante's Inferno, the PS3 game. It's basically like God of War, but with the Divine Comedy, like the Christian This is basically God of War with the Christian mythology, specifically the Divine Comedy poem. And I've been searching for this because my options were either buy the PS3 used and hunt for the game, or do it through the internet, like download it through the internet somehow. So I basically did the second option and finally found it, and I haven't tested it, so I'm not gonna play it now because I don't have a lot of time tonight. But in the next couple of days I might play it. You might see a couple of videos about it. And just really excited to play this game. I'm a huge like Christian mythology, like the myth behind everything, like the angels, archangels, the demons. I love those. Like, I mean, obviously I like the popular ones like Greek, Roman, Egyptian, but the Christian mythology is always fun and exciting to and entertaining. So, and basically nothing. That's it. I've been trying to hunt this video game forever, and I'm finally going to play. Hopefully, it doesn't have a lot of bugs or glitches, being that I just downloaded from the internet, but it's just impossible. They need to make a remake, but I think it's impossible. I have to research something about the studio or maybe the rights or something, the license or something. I don't know, but they at least need to make a remake of this game for the PS5 or for PC. Anyway, that's it for today. Hopefully you enjoyed that, and I'm going to go on to the next video. See you all in the next one.